Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Chapter 4, Text 112. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Teṣāṁ jyeṣṭhasya sāmrājye. Pravṛttir bhagavat-priyāt. Ato bahu-vidhā deva durlabhā rājya-sampadaḥ. The eldest of these brothers rules the state out of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus his kingdom is rich in all sorts of assets rarely enjoyed by the demigods. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Taksuram Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, wonderful stay in Sridham Mayapur, Odaryadam, the land of magnanimity or grace, which means that you can achieve more than your effort or qualification. So it's a nice experience. And so many relationships, because I was giving class for about 10 years or something, every day in the Vaishnava Academy to about 60 or 70 devotees, and with the best Russian translators. So that's really a great thing to do. And this time in Yugala and Jagadish's house on the roof, they have an even bigger hall that they're doing for their Russian Shastra. So that's really nice too. Anyway, I think we really get into it. We know the template of this, the search for the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. And we know their qualification. Ichadvesa samutena dvandva mohena. People are born in this world overcome by the dualities of desire and hate, but there's none in the devotee. They're only concerned for God's pleasure. If the ultimate reality is love, then people are thinking about others before themselves. And that's also the essence of happiness. We know that ourselves from this world, that when we do things for others, it has a wonderful feeling in our hearts. And that we act selfishly, it has, I'll make up a word, an unwonderful kind of sense in our hearts. So here, Hanuman, out of humility, but it's not just humility. There's someone more intimate with God than him. Out of humility, he's pointing to him. It's not just that he's making it up. And he almost goes there. He's so attracted by because it's Hanuman pointing to the Pandavas by their intimate relationship with Krishna, where there's that freedom of love, not restricted by obligations, duty, fear, distance. But, he has his own sweet Av, his own relationship with Krishna, which is completely pure, but it's in a reverential mood of Dasyaras. This is his servant. So he's pointing to the Pandavas, and now he's describing them. I believe he's describing them to Narada Muni to encourage him on his search to move forward. And here, the key word here is bhagavat-priyāt, pravṛttir, sāmrājye, pravṛttir. He is teṣāṁ, among them, jyeṣṭhasya, the eldest, sāmrājye, pravṛttir, who is involved in ruling the state, bhagavat-priyāt, out of love, which is antithetical to the reason why most people rule. And look at the mess of the world. And that's why Bhaktisiddhanta said the only lack in the world is of Krishna consciousness. Look at the world when there's no guidance, there's no knowledge, and there's so many unnecessary conflicts, people trying to rule, people trying to control. But here, his involvement is bhagavat-priyāt, out of love for the personality of Godhead. Ata, therefore, bahu-vidhā, some of his kingdom, sampadaḥ, so much assets, opulences, that varieties of opulences, deva, durlabhā, difficult to attain by even the demigods. Krishna gives and Krishna takes, and it's all his mercy. But what's that verse? Sahayagya prajashishpa parovacha prajapati anena vishab. He sent forth in this world, men and demigods, and said, do sacrifice, and by that you'll be happy and spiritually advanced. Nayam lokas tayagyasya kuto yakr. Without sacrifice, there's no happiness in this life or the next. And we should repeat that many, many times in our minds. Without sacrifice, there's sacrifice and there's selfishness. We have to come to the platform of sacrifice. Because sacrifice is the door to love. There's no love without sacrifice. So, and then because therefore the God has organized this world that there's a reciprocation with piety. Because he wants people to sacrifice. So if people do yagya, saha yagya praja shrishva, if they do yagya, then there's opulence. And therefore, we can't underestimate actually the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement. Yagyai, sankirtana prayer, yajanti, where intelligent people do sankirtan. We can't imagine the benefit of that and the urgency of that and how Prabhupada felt the urgency of that. Because the world is falling apart. 2024, my God. When a car goes at breakneck speed, it's going to crash. And when material civilization, it's just accelerating with the wrong faith or objective, how to enjoy and control. And the people who enjoy and control give people the illusion that they'll give them so many gadgets where they can control and enjoy. But the wrong faith, how we can serve and love. So, and I told you what Prabhupada what Narayana Maharaj told me, that when Prabhupada would come to his room, when he would come to Prabhupada's room, because Prabhupada was senior, when Prabhupada lived in the Keshavaji Gaudiya Math, and Prabhupada had a quilt, but because Prabhupada left everything when he left home, there were holes in the quilt, so it's stuffed with cotton. So Prabhupada took off, after he took sannyas, his uttariya, his top piece, and put it down so Narayana Maharaj could sit. He said, but in that condition, Prabhupada kept on talking about the Pandavas who ruled the world, but still were a Kinchana Gotra. They were of the lineage of those who felt they had nothing, because they saw and that's spiritual vision. You see everything as God's energy and meant for his service. So Hanuman is appreciating this because he sees this core devotional feeling. So a lot of times, because these points are it seems to be honing on the same points, I may just read and let's see what we can comment. Commentary: if the Pandavas had no interest in royal opulence, why were they so entangled in it? Only as a burden of love, King Yudhishthira accepted the responsibilities of the throne, because they afforded a great opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness. Humility means to surrender to God's will. That's what humility means. And sometimes God's will is to be bold and forceful and to control, as it is Maharaj Yudhishthira. So he does it as a service. And when you do things as a service, your interaction with Maya, or the illusory energy, is to give it to God. And therefore you start seeing it as God's. And therefore it doesn't have that effect of entangling you. He knew that two special kinds of service available only in the material world: killing demons and preaching to the conditioned souls please the Lord, even when they involve what seems to be material entanglement. Yeah, when you deal with those things, right? Preaching, there's so much facilities. It's a very fine line. Prabhupada told us to be very careful not to waste a farthing, penny in Krishna's service. Waste means want. If you waste Krishna's energy, in the future, you will want it. So Sri Sutta Goswami says, Api palad dharma raja pitrivad ranjayan praja nispiha sarvakamebhya Krishna padha nusevaya. Emperor Yudhishthira administered generously to everyone during his reign. This is a quote. He was exactly like his father. He had no personal ambition and was free from all kinds of sense gratification because of his continuous service unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, Bhagavatam 1:12-4. So real renunciation is not staying aloof from the objects and use of the objects of the senses, but it's being detached, indifferent to them. There's a difference between renouncing something and being indifferent to it. They were really indifferent to it. And therefore they could possess it for Krishna's service. Rajayan Praja, gratifying the citizens. Now it described how opulent it is, and what Prabhupada wants to make the point that it's not just the leader's role to make sure people have all their material needs. That's his responsibility. But for the higher objective of changing consciousness, because ultimately happiness is not things, but it's how you look at things. So it does not mean that Maharaj Yudhisthira Maharaj pacified them with bread and circuses or a booming materialistic economy. It means he encouraged them to become Krishna conscious and made all practical arrangements towards that end. The pleasure of pure devotional service is the only real source of satisfaction for all living beings. I'm reading very prayerfully, so when I hit a sentence that really hits me, I'm going to read it again. The pleasure of pure devotional service is the only real source of satisfaction for all human beings. The pleasure of pure devotional service is the only real source of satisfaction for all human beings. So important, actually, to come to these classes and others, to hear from the great acharyas and Srila Prabhupada with faith, so that we can have the proper objective in life. Because that's the worst tragedy, when your faith is in something temporary that will ultimately lead to misery, but you're thinking it's the goal. That's the story of the material world. We see it played out, with the rich and famous, how miserable they are with material goals, because it is filled with duality. Can't imagine these people with the big yachts and the big parties and all these things. I describe, my analogy is it's like, the last meal on death row. I mean, how much can you enjoy it? The pleasure of pure devotional service is the only real source of satisfaction for all human beings, as Narada tells Shonaka Rishi in Sri Hari Bhakti Shuddhaya. You are most extremely fortunate, because the entire population is being empowered by you spiritually. The truly fortunate leader of society is one who can instill devotion for Lord Hari in the hearts of people tormented in material existence. The truly fortunate leader of society is one who can instill devotion for Lord Hari in the hearts of people tormented in material existence. The truly fortunate leader is one who can instill devotion for Lord Hari in the hearts of people tormented in material existence. Material life is tormented because it has that duality. That is not eternal. Nasate vidyate bhavo, nabhavo vidyate saha. It's not eternal. So you get that kind of duality in it. So people tormented by material existence. Thus, Sutta Goswami further states about King Yudhisthira. He was talking about his opulence, etc., but because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. In Vedic civilization, the ruler of a kingdom had the right to claim 1/6 of the citizens' total wealth to maintain the government and his personal household. A king also received 1/6 of the people's karmic reaction, which in a pious domain like that of the Pandavas made a great stock of good karma. Following the lead of King Yudhisthira, then his brothers, they weren't also attracted, and they cooperated in the zeal in upholding the highest principles of human civilization. My God. Wow. Qualified leaders. So rare. Rājya-sampadaḥ vamedadi, text 113. Maha punya jyeṣṭhasya Vishnu lokadeo trapi jambu dvipad hirajita. By sacrifices like the Rājya-sampadaḥ and Ashvamedha, he has earned pious credits great enough for attaining the world of Lord Vishnu, and while still in this world, he rules the entire sphere of Jambudvip. So there's a science in the material world, and how to perform the sacrifices which invoke a result. It's there, and people know that. I told you, he's actually become kind of a friend of mine, the grandson of Prabhupada's first disciple, whose name was Acharya Papaka Mishra. He's I don't know, since the age of 8 till the age of like 44, he was trained by his guru in Tantra, not bad Tantra, but how to perform sacrifices to invoke, certain results. So there's a science there. And Maharaj Yudhisthira performed the most powerful, the Rājya-sampadaḥ and Ashvamedha. These are like, it says Mahapunya, Rājya-sampadaḥ, Ashvamedha, Adi, and others, Mahapunya. Arjita, he earned Mahapunya, great pious credits. So, commentary, Vedic sacrifices usually earn their performers material benefits up to the attainment of heaven. But because Yudhisthira conducted the Rājya-sampadaḥ and Ashvamedha sacrifices in pure Krishna consciousness and offered all the fruits to satisfy Sri Krishna, the benefits of Yudhisthira derived were transcendental. His engagement in sacrificial rituals only increased his exclusive devotion for Krishna. So he performed these rituals not just for material benefit, but to help rule the kingdom for God and to create prosperity, because that was his service. So kings should see that the citizens are peaceful so they can pursue spiritual life. So part of their duty was material, and he did it. But he did it for Krishna, for his seva, and therefore it only increased his exclusive devotion. By performing the Rājya-sampadaḥ and Ashvamedha sacrifices, Yudhisthira earned the privilege to enter Vaikuntha. Included automatically in this privilege was the right to visit the heavenly planets of Indra and every other material planet. The joy of life in Vaikuntha automatically includes all the joys found in Swarga Loka and elsewhere. In addition to these benefits for the next life, Yudhisthira prospered in this life as well, but still the demigods are lining up to take birth in this miserable Kali Yuga so that they can develop humility. And attract God's mercy, which is a greater opulence and a greater gift than anything else. And we have to be convinced of that. The best thing in the world we could have right now if we surrender. The highest happiness we can have right now if we surrender. Trilokya vyapakam svacham. Yashascha vishaya pare. Suryanam spriyaniyaye sarva dosha vivarjita. His pure fame is known throughout the three worlds. His faultless possessions invoke the envy of the gods, Suryanam, the demigods. His swacham yasha, his pure fame, Trilokya, known throughout the three worlds. And Vishaya, the objects of his possession, Pareya, superior. And Sarva dosha, they're free from all faults because There's no karma in what he got, because the kingdom, he did everything for God. So what came is not a karmic reaction. It's the mercy of Krishna. So what a position he has. So therefore, Hanuman's telling Narada, you go there. Krishna pasada janita, Krishna eva samarpita, nashakam kam api pritam rago janayutum kuchit. The king achieved all this opulence by Krishna's mercy and has offered it all to Krishna. It never had any power to please him. These powerful objects, we got to understand what the modes of nature are. There's the shapes. And when I talk about the shapes, I'm talking the fragrance, the touch, the sight, the hearing. They're subtle strains of matter that create shapes of matter that can satisfy your particular desires. That's what the modes of nature are. They're a product of our desires. We want to enjoy separate from God. And God has created these three strands of matter that in all aspects of existence can create an experience for you to enjoy. So it's so powerful, the modes of nature. The opposite sex and good food, so many things. And therefore, even prasadam, oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of path leading to death. Somehow we have fallen into this ocean of material existence. Of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. But you've given us this nice prasadam just to help us conquer the tongue. Now let us take to our full satisfaction in glorifying Radha Krishna and beg for the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprasad Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punya Rito Raja Vishvaso Navajayate. But it never had the power. Na asakam, it never had the power at all to allure him into the world of karma. Because he saw everything as Krishna's and meant for his service. So Hanuman is pleading, you please go there. Commentary, Yudhisthira Maharaj had his command all that a civilized gentleman would like to enjoy in this world. Even the demigods on the higher planets can only dream of such opulence. And he not only enjoyed fabulous opulence in this life, but it could expect still more in the next. Because Yudhisthira was a pure devotee, even his material riches were faultless. In contrast to the wealth, knowledge, and other assets of people in this world, his assets were permanent because the source was Sri Krishna's satisfaction rather than the material course of karma. Neha bikamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya jayate mahatobhya. In this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution. It's not karma. It remains part of your soul. So what he did, it's eternal. In contrast, when Yudhisthira offered his assets back to Krishna, no possibility remained that they would corrupt him. Those assets being dedicated to Krishna in selfless love can only further explain the virtue of Yudhisthira's character. Okay, so we'll continue going. Radhe, 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 Radhe. Krishna Premagni Dandaya Mananta Karanasya Hi Shud Agni Vikalasyeva Visha shrak chandanadaya. Since his heart always burns in the fire of love for Krishna, those garlands, fine garments, and sandalwood pulp attract him no more than they would attract a man afflicted by the fire of hunger. He's just, everything is love. It's not about himself. The things he has is for Krishna and Krishna's service. I think the last time that I was preaching to this aristocratic South American lady, and she was really sincere. Dressed nicely, had a beautiful apartment in the Upper West Side, but she was ready to give everything to Krishna. But she had needs and she had desires. But when you have that goal of giving everything to Krishna, those needs and desires become part of Krishna consciousness in the sense that you need them to be peaceful for the higher endeavor of Krishna consciousness, but you don't become entangled by them. Commentary: the slightest touch of pure prema, love for Godhead, destroys all faults in a devotee. It satisfies the devotee so completely that nothing inferior can divert his attention, because it's sandrandana visheshatma, it's condensed. Consciousness is condensed on God, on reality, and that energy of our relationship with reality. To outsiders, the effects of prema may seem painful. The devotee seems to burn in torment while separated from the Lord. And even while enjoying the Lord's company, he burns in apprehension of separation to come. This is going to be described later in terms of the gopis. This kind of torment that's really pleasure. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, someone described it. Again, with a good humor man, when we used to grow up, the ice cream truck would come, we'd hear the bells, our mother would give us 15 cents, and we'd look at and pick out the one, and we'd ask the good humor man, which was good humor ice cream, we'd ask the good humor man, can we have some dry ice? And then, you press it on someone, and even though it was cold, it burned. The cold burned. So that example is trying to give to show you that it has one effect, but actually it's the opposite of what it is. So it's torment, but it's bliss. But in fact, viraha-bhāv, devotional service and separation, is the highest essence of loving intimacy, ecstasy. The intimate devotees in Sri Vrindavan constantly experience viraha-bhāv. As Sukadeva Swami says in describing the fall season in Vrindavan, Aslisha sama shitoshnam prasunavama madatum janastapam johur gopyo nakrishna ritti chetasa. Except for the gopis, whose hearts had been stolen by Krishna, the people could forget their suffering by embracing the wind from the flower-filled forest. This wind was neither hot nor cold. Bhagavatam 10, 20, 45. Yeah. At the best season, the wind is not hot or cold. It's so pleasant. The gopis of Vrindavan were so intensely absorbed in viraha-bhāv that the cool breezes of autumn only increased the burning in their heart, because this was the time of the year when the fever of their hankering to be with Krishna reached its peak. Hanuman cites the analogy of a man suffering from hunger. The fire of extreme hunger dries up all the elements of his body, so they can no longer enjoy the pleasure of clothes or other objects of enjoyment, or even the association of family and friends. Possessing worldly hunger merely adds to his frustration. Only when his hunger is removed will he be relieved of anxiety. Similarly, the gopis can be satisfied only by the company of Krishna. only by the company of Krishna. What was the point I was going to make there? Hare Krishna, Hare. Yeah, there's 8 stages of prema, the highest level. Bhav, prema, sneha, anurag. Anyway, there's 8. But the prema stage, the first stage described in prema, is that in association with Krishna, the greatest suffering seems like the highest bliss. And wait. In union with Krishna, the highest suffering seems like the highest bliss. And in separation from Krishna, the greatest pleasure seems like the torment. Just like Radharani is in Java, it's separation from Krishna, and she's burning in separation, and they make a bed of lotus flowers and sandalwood paste and so many, and she's burning in anxiety. But in the morning, when she was cooking for Krishna, and there were 100 clay stoves in the middle of the summer, she was the greatest pleasure. So Aho Kim Apare Sima Draupadi Mahashivara Tadrisha Pratara Simad Bhimasena Arjuna Daya. Just see, his superlative queen is none other than Srimati Draupadi, and his brothers are such men as the blessed Bhimasena and Arjuna. The Priya Deha Sambandhan, Nachurtar Varga Sandanat, Param Shri Krishna Padabja, Prema Sambandhata Priya. They are dear to him not because of bodily ties or because they help him reach the 4 goals of material life, but because of their loving bond with the lotus feet of Krishna. So that's where the love exists in the spiritual world. It exists between people because of their connection with Krishna. That gives the value to all relationships. Commentary: it is true that Yudhisthira was very much attached to his brothers and wife, but that attachment was not material. It was based not on identification with material bodies, but on the pure spiritual identities of him and his family as eternal servants of Krishna. Srimati Draupadi was the most excellent queen that any emperor could have, and she was empowered with the beauty and other transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's consort, Lakshmi Devi. But Yudhisthira's affection for her was not like being attracted by these qualities. He was completely immune to such attraction. Yudhisthira's brothers and wife also offered him valuable assistance in fulfilling his responsibilities for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. These 4 material aims of life, however, were also powerless to distract him from his attachment to Krishna's lotus feet. He cherished his connection with Bhima, his other brothers, and Draupadi only because they had pure devotion for Krishna. Anything or anyone associated with Krishna is dear to a pure Vaishnava. It's such a fact. When we're Vaishnavas, then devotees attract us. And the more devotion they have, the more surrender they have, the more enlightened they are, is in relationship to Krishna. The more attractive they become to us. So when Krishna came together in either causal or lifetime relationships, they naturally develop love for one another. So when the Vaishnavas come together in either casual or lifetime, they naturally develop love for one another. They relish great pleasure in tasting together the rasas of Krishna consciousness. Their spiritual assets expand as each devotee's good qualities magnify those of her spiritual companions. In the family of the Pandavas, the wife and younger brothers especially benefited from following the lead of Yudhisthira. Well, that's the Vaishnav society. Machita matkata prana bodhiyantas parasparam, bodhiyantas parasparam, enlightening one another. Okay, one more verse. Vanarena mayatesham nirvaktum shakyate kiyat mahatmyam bhagavan veti bhavan evadikadikam. But what can a forest monkey like me say about the Pandavas? Your lordship already knows much more than I about his glories. Commentary, Hanuman is not actually the subhuman creature he presents himself to be. He speaks in this way only from deep humility. By calling Narada Bhagavan the best of spiritual masters, virtually equal to God, he acknowledges that Narada already knows very well the greatness of the Pandavas. So Hanuman suggests that Narada, rather than spend more time listening to him, should at once proceed to the kingdom of the Kurus. Thus ends the 4th chapter of part 1 of Srila Sanatana Goswami's Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Bhakta, the devotees. One second. Okay, here it is. Oops. Okay. Jamunajaya was leading a retreat in Mexico. So she wrote me because she's very attached to these classes. Gail, any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Yeah, a couple. You know, we say that the devotees, they get the happiness of swarga. That's included in their devotion. You know, they get the happiness of swargaloka. But I'm wondering if it's not more accurate to say they get the opulence of swarga, because that the happiness of swarga is sense gratification.
Yeah, I think you could say that when it means the happiness of a place, if you're talking colloquial terms, is in relationship to, especially when you're talking about swaga, in relationship to material happiness. Yeah, so it's that is there for them. They already surpassed.
Yeah, but like you just did, material happiness has no power over them. So
no, it has no power. But I'm just saying it's included.
But it's available to them if they wanted it.
Yeah, the opulence is there. Yeah, it's concluded. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, it's just that they only want the opulence for Krishna's sake.
Right. Right. So they may want that opulence too to spread Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Yudhisthira specifically wanted the opulence because he wanted to encourage people in devotion and show that devotees don't necessarily have to be poor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Maharaj, one other thing was the dry ice analogy thing. So Radharani cooking under scorching heat, that was her greatest pleasure. But what's an example of the greatest pleasure being like the source of greatest torment?
The example that's given in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is Radharani is in Jawa in separation. So the friends make her a bed and they put these cool lotus flowers and then thick sandalwood pulp and then more lotus flowers and make this thick, cool bed. And she's tortured. Because she's separate from Krishna. That's the example that's given. There may be another one that's given.
Yeah, because in that example, it still seems like she's getting the greatest torment because it's the separation there still.
Yeah, she's tormented. So yeah, right. But I'm just saying that's the idea, that the pleasure indicating the separation is the greatest torment. Yeah.
Yeah, I want an example where she's receiving so much pleasure, but that pleasure that she's receiving is giving her so much pain. Because we saw the other thing, it seems more obvious, that the greatest torment is giving her so much pleasure. But, because what the gopis did for her with the bed of the sandalwood and such, that was an attempt to relieve her torment. It wasn't that pleasure was giving her pain.
Yeah, well, I guess it's time to say goodbye to everyone.
But we're here.
Okay. All right. I'll think more of your example, Gail.
Thank you.
Your question. Okay. Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Krishna-katha. Thank you so much for the class. I also liked very much that happiness is not things, but the way we look at the things. It's so important to understand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Great to see you.
Hey, Haribo Toto.
Hare
Right. Who else want to say hello?
It's Ishvari Sundari. Isabel.
Oh, wow. Isabel.
Harika.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I love you're on your way to work and
I'm losing you a little bit. I don't know if you could still hear me.
I can still hear you. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Good. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for the class.
Looks very beautiful there. You're outside?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's
Wonderful.
a very nice weather, Maharaj. Nikish.
Okay, Haribo. Great.
Thank you very much
Good.
for the class, Maharaj. Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Srila Dhanurdhara here.
Radhika. Hi, nice to see
Thanks
you.
for the class. Nice
Send
to
me a
see you.
message.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Garaj, Slogovina, thank you for class.
Oops. Okay, we better go because, here you go.